From inside the Banner offices along the Inner Harbor, it is the Banner Baseball Live Chat. Paul Mancano and Andy Kostka. Been a while since we've had you on this show, Andy.
Oh, it's good to be back.
You've been out and about. You've been up in the Northwest, the Pacific Northwest. You were back, but fear not, because the Orioles haven't done a single thing since the last time we've had you on this show.
They were waiting for me. I really appreciate everything they've done.
Yeah.
I wanted to, hold the news until I'm back in town. So now things will pick up.
Sure.
No worries there.
Well, immediately things picked up with, Tyler Nevin. I mean, that is the hottest of hot button issues that we are going to discuss here on the Banner Baseball Live Chat. We're live on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. So please give us a comment, give us a like, give us a thumbs up anywhere that you are watching. We're going to talk about some players who could break out for the Orioles this season. Some maybe sophomores who could experience a leap in their second year. Some younger players who, with some more playing time, could become some impact big leaguers for the Orioles. But, Andy, we got to talk about Tyler Nevin, our good old friend, coming back. First off, great to the media. Good guy. Son of, former Angels manager. He is steeped in baseball knowledge. Yeah. He had a little run in Baltimore. He was part of the Michael Givens trade, if you recall, from Colorado, came over with Terrin Vavra, and, played in a little over 60 games for the Orioles between the 2021 and 2022 seasons. And then on New Year's Eve, this is New Year's Eve 2022, going into 2023, the Orioles traded him for cash considerations to the Detroit Tigers. And last year with the Tigers, he played in just about 40 games for them and did not hit particularly well. 205, 3 homers, 604 OPS in, 41 big league games for the Tigers. Andy, Orioles had 2 open spots on their 40-man. Should we read anything into this? Is this at all an impactful move for the Orioles?
Well, first off, welcome back, Tyler Nevin, who, as you mentioned, was great to the media. Always had time.
Favorite in the clubhouse.
Yeah. And a lot of the guys in the clubhouse love that guy. I remember Adley Rutschman, Gunnar Henderson. They played snow golf with Tyler Nevin last offseason. So
should I ask what snow golf is?
It was snowing and they played golf while it was snowing. That's what snow golf is.
White ball, white snow. I don't see anything going wrong.
Actually, I asked that question, and this is a complete aside. I'm so sorry to everyone watching, but they used neon yellow balls, which was
that's sick.
Incredibly. I thought, wow, the Orioles are in good hands. These young guys have figured that one out. So really great stuff. But I don't know if the fan base should really read too much into the Tyler Nevin return. I was thinking in my head, as things do, of maybe they're adding infield depth for a big trade for a starting pitcher that might see a Connor Norby, a Joey Ortiz, whoever it might be, leave the organization for a starting pitcher.
Right.
Probably what this actually is, they had an extra spot on the 40-man roster. Now they have 39 guys on the 40-man. Still have room for a pitcher.
Yeah.
Or Jackson Holiday.
Holiday. Who is not on the 40-man.
He's not on the 40-man. So I think it's just kind of a depth piece.
Yeah.
He's kind of one of those quad A guys. He's a good AAA player. He's a little he struggles at the major league level most of the time. Good defensively, versatile defender.
Sure.
Which adds value to him. Can play corner outfield, corner infield. But yeah, I think this was a rather run of the mill move to add a guy that the organization knows all about.
Yeah.
And maybe he plays a lot of first base in AAA Norfolk.
Yeah, it's essentially like picking him up off waivers because he had been placed on waivers by the Tigers. Orioles just trading cash there. I mean, I think of some previous offseason moves where they've added a guy via cash considerations trade or via a waiver claim. Think of Yolmer Sanchez, a couple of years ago, who was on the 40-man roster throughout the entire offseason, then didn't make the team. Or I think of Lewin Diaz.
Yeah, I was gonna say Lewin Diaz, poor guy. Last year he was on every team practically.
He was lighting up the transaction log, and then just didn't play in the big leagues at all. I don't think last year. So this could be just another one of those moves. Like Orioles had the open spot. They figure might as well just take a chance on an old friend. And he did play very well in AAA last year.
He did.
He's going to be 27 this coming season. He hit 326 with 15 homers and a 943 OPS in 87 games. And like you said, can play third, can play first, hits from the right side of the plate. So, not a complete overlap with, somebody like Ryan O'Hearn, who also can play the corner outfield.
Yep.
But I tend to think, he's probably not, unless significant injuries, take place, knock on wood, hopefully they won't in the next couple months. He's probably not going to be on this team. The biggest thing with him is he is out of options as well.
That is a huge consideration. You have to sneak him through waivers if you do call him up. I think he'd be, at best an emergency call-up option. So if he is starting games for the Orioles in 2024, unfortunately,
something has gone wrong.
Yeah, which is no slight to Tyler Nevin, great guy, phenomenal AAA hitter last year, and maybe this was a move to back-to-back AAA championships for Norfolk. They really bolster that lineup with this move. You never know.
Buck Britton is cracking his knuckles. He's excited. So that's the Tyler Nevin news. Let's get to some news about which Orioles could break out in 2024. And Andy, you wrote on the BaltimoreBanner.com, where you can subscribe $1 for 6 months, about Grayson Rodriguez. And I think he's a fascinating character coming into the season because we saw him make 23 big league starts last year, bounced back and forth between Norfolk and the big leagues, had a 4.35 ERA, is no longer really considered a prospect, but was one of the top pitching prospects in all of baseball and was obviously the Orioles' top pitching prospect for years. And started out the season rough, didn't make the opening day roster, had a rough spring training, flashed at times in the first half, and then took off in the second half of the season.
Yeah, his second half, I think it was a 2.85 ERA after the All-Star game, which was fifth best in the majors after July 10 or whenever the All-Star game was. So if you look at that, the latter half of the season, you think, wow, this is an ace potential pitcher, which I think many people internally and fan base wise thought he could be a minor leaguer. He's still just 24 years old.
Yeah,
incredibly young for a starting pitcher. Phenomenal fastball life. When he came back from his stint in the minor leagues, we saw a different Grayson Rodriguez. Actually, we saw the same Grayson Rodriguez that we saw in the minors.
Yeah,
which is what you wanted to see in the majors.
Sure.
And that was a really important thing, that he got back to overpowering batters with a fastball that he could control, out of the zone, missing close that, guys swing through. You can control it up in the zone. That was a really great thing. The curveball, the slider, and the changeup also were improved pitches in the second half. He got his feel back. But I think the biggest thing was the fastball command was terrific. And this offseason is a big one for him. It's, he's going into second full season.
Yeah.
Likely the number 2 or number 3 starter if no moves happen. The O's are going to need a big year from him.
Absolutely.
And he looks back, in the story. Please go read it. It would be great for our analytics.
Boost the stats.
Yeah. But in the story, he pointed out how he looks back on that playoff game against the Rangers, and he realizes what he did wrong. He was way too hyped up for it. He was overthrowing the 4-seamer. His velocity was great as a result, but he threw like 44% of them for strikes, which was not a winning formula compared to what he had been doing the latter half of the year. Was so consistent with his fastball.
Yeah.
Was really fascinating. And I don't mean to drone on too long and then keep you here just, nodding, but was really fascinating. He's working on a 2-seam fastball this offseason. And part of the consideration there is, it's, the fastball was so good, 4-seam was so good for him. This is a different look for hitters to now have to get used to, where he has a little bit of run on his fastball. The 2-seamer he can jam guys inside even better with the 2 for right on right matchup. The 2-seamer is going to be even better for that situation. Can have a little bit of run away from a left-handed hitter. What's interesting though, he mentioned how when he overthrows his 4-seamer, it actually kind of has arm side movement like a 2-seamer, which is not what he wants, because he's it completely messes up his pinpoint accuracy
It's bad
because it's not going where he thinks it should be going. He thinks the four-seamer should move, more glove side a little bit.
Gotcha.
Or have a little rise on it.
Gotcha.
Instead, it was missing arm side, which was confusing for him. It was tough to locate that pitch.
Yeah.
And now they're thinking, well, what if, number one, you don't overthrow your four-seamer,
Mhm.
and number two, what if you actually add a two-seamer and just see what it looks like? See if you can actually place that pitch on purpose inside on a hitter. And maybe that's a great look.
Yeah.
Maybe it could be a great thing. With Kyle Bradish, his two-seamer was great this year.
Right.
So maybe it's something that the Orioles can really develop, and no guarantee he uses it. Grayson, tempered expectations on that pitch, saying, they're working on it this offseason. They're going to use it in spring training just to see how it looks before actual games. So maybe he never uses it in an actual meaningful baseball game, but
Right.
It is an interesting thing he's working on.
Yeah, and that pitch has kind of been in vogue, I think, in Major League Baseball in general. Yeah, speaking of Grayson getting too amped up, because, obviously that Game 2 start against the Rangers was, probably a nadir of his season. It was not how he wanted to end that season. But I've seen him pitch throughout the minors. I remember him crushing Red Bulls and then basically crushing the can against his head before going out there to pitch. But there was a playoff game in Bowie. It was like the Eastern League Championship Series, and I remember him doing the same thing. Probably there was a long delay, so maybe he had 2 or 3 Red Bulls, and then goes out there to pitch, and he's wild to start the game. I mean, he is. You watch him pitch; he's an emotional guy on the mound. And, that was a high intensity moment for him to start Game 2 at Camden Yards in front of that packed crowd, with the Orioles already being down 1-0 in the series, a tough spot for a rookie. It's understandable that he had those kind of struggles. And you hope that he learns, like you said, from that. And it sounds like he certainly has taken into consideration exactly what went wrong in that situation. And you hope he gets better from it.
Correct. Yeah. And he was really, he pointed out as well that it wasn't just him that was new to the postseason for the major leagues, but a large portion of the roster was new to the postseason.
Yeah.
So he said, when the O's, he was firm. He said, when we make the postseason in 2024, he's booking it in already. They will be better prepared mentally to deal with the excitement, which can be a great thing. I mean, sometimes you want to soak in that excitement and let it kind of drive you forward. And sometimes you need to separate yourself a little bit because it can get you out of what you normally do day to day.
Right.
So I think everyone on the roster will have a better understanding of what they need to do individually. Maybe they get super amped and drink 3 Red Bulls. Maybe that's great for them. Probably, Grayson now knows that he needs to actually settle down and not try to break down a brick wall with a baseball.
Yeah, exactly. And all 3 of those starters in games 1, 2, and 3 were all making their first ever postseason appearance. And Kyle Bradish, Grayson Rodriguez, Dean Kramer. I think that's why it's important that the Orioles, they learn from this experience. It would be great if they could have John Means healthy pitching next season and maybe, in the playoffs. And it would also be great if they could add yet another veteran starting pitcher via trade or via free agency, because that would just add a lot. We saw how much they've benefited from having guys like Kyle Gibson in that locker room and starting regularly for them. So just having one more experienced guy, I think, would certainly help that. But Grayson Rodriguez, big potential breakout candidate. And we could be really talking about him the way that we talked about Bradish in 2023, where Bradish had a fine rookie season, had some flashes of brilliance, and then hit a new level in 2023. That could be Grayson this year. He could go from a 4.35 ERA down to a 3.50 at least.
And that'd be a great thing for the Orioles
to
have a young starter who they can really pin as, okay, he's not only going to be high potential, but he's going to be a workhorse at this major league level.
Exactly. All right. So Grayson Rodriguez, I think, top candidate to potentially break out this season. Another guy who made his debut in 2023, Jordan Westburg, kind of do it all, not excellent at any one thing, but very good at a lot of different things. Can play defensively at short, second, third. We saw him come up midseason, and he just played consistent enough defense. He hit consistent enough at the plate to stay on the big league roster for the final couple months of the season. Hit 260 with 3 homers. I think he is a guy that could really benefit from more playing time. Adam Frazier's not going to be there. Maybe Jackson Holliday will be the Orioles' opening day second baseman, but they're going to have use for Jordan Westburg at third base, at shortstop, at second base, pretty much, no matter whether Holliday makes the opening day roster or not.
Yeah, correct. Jordan Westburg seems to have solidified his major league spot in Baltimore.
Yeah.
Loved what he did at the plate for most of the year. Seemed really not out of his depth. Not a huge amount of power immediately, but that's not a necessary thing he had to do, considering they have a lot of other power hitters on Baltimore.
Yeah.
But 260, you take that every day, and the fact that he can play 3 infield positions, and I mean, you could slot him into the corner outfield,
sure,
if you were in a real pickle. But yeah, he I think will be a maybe not everyday player, but practically an everyday player with how frequently he rotates into different positions. And what I kind of mean by that is maybe he's not the everyday second baseman, but maybe he starts 2 games a week at second base, 2 games a week at third base, and then we'll fill in at shortstop late in the game if like some crazy thing happens. You want Gunnar at shortstop or Jorge Mateo, but
right,
you can always have mix and match, and he'll be in the lineup a lot. And I think this will be another season where, he's going to be called upon a lot.
Yeah, and we've seen injuries are going to happen, and if anybody in that infield goes down for a significant amount of time, if Urias or Mateo has to miss time, and of course Gunnar, which knock on wood, you hope everybody's healthy. But he's very capable at all 3 of those spots, and I think that is a huge, huge boost for him. Like you said, the power is going to be interesting because he's hitting from the right side of the plate at Camden Yards. Not ideal, but you just hope he can take enough strides in just little steps of his game to just continue to be a well-rounded depth piece for this Orioles team. And like you said, may not be stuck at any one spot. I mean, we saw Gunnar basically split his games between shortstop and third base.
Right.
So, and he ended up playing the entire season. So it doesn't matter where they put him. I think he will get a lot of playing time this year.
I agree.
In terms of other candidates who could break out this year, I'm interested to see if and when Colton Cowser comes back up to the big league level, because he really struggled in a small sample size last year. 26 games, hit 115 with the O's, can play all 3 spots in the outfield. Maybe not the defensive whiz that Cedric Mullins is, but the hope is, he can do just enough in a massive left field or in center field.
Yeah, I don't think he's even the defensive whiz that Austin Hayes is.
Yeah, he's not quite as fast, I think, and not quite as good there. However, in theory, can play center field.
Yeah.
I'm just interested to see what kind of adjustments he has up his sleeve for this offseason, for spring training, because the Orioles have high hopes for him. I mean, he's one of their top prospects, former number 5 overall pick, can bat from the left side of the plate. He's now kind of dealing with Heston Kjerstad, who finished the regular season on the roster.
Yeah.
And I know Kjerstad doesn't play center. I know he's really relegated to right or DH or maybe even first base, but that's still competition. And Cowser has to step it up, I think, if he wants to ensure that he's going to get regular playing time this year.
Yeah, I think there is a world in which it's one or the other. Between long-term, how long they're in this organization.
Yeah, they both hit from the left side.
Yeah. It's the power from Kjerstad is electric.
Yeah.
The defense is a sticking point. Was not trusted defensively most of the time. So right field and DH, and maybe he learns more first base as time goes on. Colton is more plus side in terms of defense, but really looked, he struggled big time, and that is a very small sample size.
Right.
So you
26 games.
you don't want to, write him off because of that. And you figure he will make adjustments, just as the league will make adjustments back, and the cat and mouse game continues. But I wouldn't be shocked if it, becomes a situation where the Orioles use one of them in a trade at some point because they feel like they have the other that can kind of be their corner outfielder of the future.
Yeah, and you look at this roster and you say 2 years from now, after the conclusion of the 2025 season, Cedric Mullins, Austin Hayes, supposed to hit free agency. Anthony Santander going to hit free agency after the 2024 season. So that's 3 outfield spots that the Orioles might have to fill at some point in the near future. And, Colton Cowser, he really struggled, like you said. He has also really struggled every time he's moved up to a new level. We've seen that throughout his minor league career. He really struggled once he got to Aberdeen. Then he figured something out in the second half of that season in 2021. He really struggled in Bowie. He figured something out. Same with Norfolk. So the hope is he's going to be able to figure something out here because, like you said, the power that Kjerstad brings cannot be ignored. And especially if you're talking about the prospect of losing Anthony Santander in a year, that's a lot of power to be removing from your lineup. Ryan O'Hearn, too, another power guy, is entering the final year of his team control. So that's a lot of power that you could be losing.
Yeah, it's a lot. And you think that short porch in right field is a great thing. It's been a great thing for O'Hearn, Santander, and Kjerstad is in that, and Cowser is in that same realm. I mean,
right.
you could imagine Cowser as a power hitter as well, flashing some power, even though that definitely Kjerstad's power is more storied.
He's got better raw power. Yeah.
So it'll be interesting, but this is a big year for both of them, and it'll be a huge spring training for both of them.
Yes.
They're both vying for potentially, the fourth, or you could mess around with the fifth outfielder, I guess, if you wanted, but probably the fourth outfielder. Maybe Ryan McKenna gets that because he can play all 3, which I know, that's not the most popular option, but he can play a great defensive center field as well. So I think he does have a little bit of an advantage there. Sam Hilliard is also on this 40-man roster right now. Last time I checked. So
Danielle Allentuck predicted he would make the team, the opening day roster.
Well, there you go.
There you go.
It's gospel.
It's set in stone. No, I think what they do with the outfield is going to be fascinating this year because do you want your fourth outfielder? Say your fourth outfielder is Heston Kjerstad. He can't play center. But Austin Hayes could play center.
Mateo there as well.
Yeah, you could play.
You could play Mateo in center. So there is an option here where you have a corner outfielder be your fourth outfielder, and then Austin Hayes is a center fielder and Jorge Mateo is a center fielder.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's as attractive of an option defensively, but it is an option.
Yeah. Well, and I think it was fascinating too. At the end of last year, they bring Kjerstad up. They also had the 2 extra, September. They have 2 extra roster spots. So you're not too worried about overlap at that point. But when you get back down to 26 for this year, is there too much overlap with Ryan O'Hearn and Heston Kjerstad? 2 left-handed hitters who can play the corner outfield, who can play first base, who are DHs as well. There's a lot of overlap with there. And, Brandon Hyde likes to mix and match his righties, his lefties.
Yeah.
Would he prefer Ryan McKenna, who's a right-handed hitter who can play center and who can pinch run?
Yeah, I just, I think O'Hearn is a lock.
I think so too, yeah.
Until he proves that, last year was not what he can do long term, which I don't know if he will prove that or not. I think he showed so many
close to 300?
He hit 292 or something.
Right.
So, I mean, phenomenal season. He needs to be on the roster as long as not a great collapse or
absolutely,
like that, or an injury. So, definitely Ryan O'Hearn is a lock. But I think you make a great point.
Yeah.
Yeah, because Ryan O'Hearn fills kind of the shoes that Heston would. And there is an argument. Do you want to have a more veteran player? He's hardly a veteran, Ryan O'Hearn, but a more veteran player who's nearing the end of his team control.
Right.
Take the spot over a young guy that could be a centerpiece for your team for many years.
Exactly.
There could be an argument to say, move on from Ryan O'Hearn and go with Heston Kjerstad. I don't agree with that argument because Ryan O'Hearn was so great.
Right.
So, because he was the best hitter on the team practically, so Ryan will, be on the team.
Yeah.
There is an option there that maybe you look at Heston.
Right. I don't think you would want to move him, like you said. And the same with Anthony Santander. I mean, I think there are some people that would probably, some portion of the fan base that would say, we have Heston Kjerstad, we have Colton Cowser and Ryan O'Hearn. Why don't we move on from Santander? But Santander brings so much power. He can hit from both sides of the plate. I know he's entering the final year of his contract, but you don't quite know what you have in Kjerstad and Cowser. And you know, it's phenomenal that they've been successful in the minor leagues and that they're top prospects, but until you see it regularly, you've already seen that from Anthony Santander. You already know exactly what you're getting from him. And it's tough to give up a sure thing for somebody that, you know, hasn't yet proven it. Might be great, but where the Orioles are in their team building phase, you know, they don't have a whole lot of time to wait for somebody to develop at the big league level. It's why Cowser was sent back down to the AAA last year.
Yeah.
You know, maybe the 2022 or 2021 Orioles would have said, Colton Cowser, you can take your lumps at the big league level.
That's why Grayson was sent back down.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, if you're not putting up consistent numbers, then that means the Orioles have less chance to win the AL East, and they're not going to be able to just wait around.
Yeah. That's a good point. Yeah, it's a lot of Paul, man, of good points. You know,
Thank you.
Yeah.
It's a lot of fascinating discussions to be had, but there are some other breakout candidates as well. I mean, I think that it's tough to say a breakout because he had 6.2 WAR last year, but Gunnar Henderson, imagine if he didn't have the first couple months struggles that he had. Imagine if he does that for an entire season. I mean, he already finished his MVO. He's already broken out. He's already a superstar. Wasn't an all-star this past year, though, because April and May were just a little bit rough for him. Boy, if he can put together a full season from start to finish, I mean, you could be talking about a true, you know, MVP candidate.
Yeah, I was kind of thinking as we were making this, you know, list of second-year jump kind of guys.
Yeah.
Like, how much better can Gunnar Henderson
be? Right. 6.2 WAR is pretty ridiculous.
Yeah, I think, like, if you get anywhere close to what he did in 2023, you're like, great, we have a superstar.
Right. Exactly.
Like, you know, like you don't need some major jump. And if you get a jump, it is MVP caliber.
Exactly.
Yeah, he will be. I think, you know, he has the potential to be an MVP type player in the future.
Yeah.
You know, for Baltimore, you hope that happens here rather than when he hits the free agent market.
Yeah.
If he ever hits the free agent market. But I do think that next year will honestly be more. Like, when I think of Gunnar Henderson's second full season in the majors, I think of it more as like, let's show consistency.
Yes.
And don't show regression.
Yes. No, absolutely.
Yeah. I don't necessarily think there's a huge jump for him.
Right.
Compared to some other guys. You kind of just hope that he mirrors what he did in 2023.
Yes.
There we are.
Yeah.
And hit play and let him do his thing.
Yeah. You have seen, I think, on this Orioles team in the past, I think of, you know, Ryan Mountcastle comes up in 2020. He's awesome for a month. Then to start 2021, he really struggles. Yep. Then he picks it up midway through the year and finishes with, you know, the Orioles rookie record, I think, in home runs.
Yep.
Gunnar Henderson had the same thing. You know, awesome gangbusters in the final month of the season, 2022. Start of 2023, little bit of a slump, picks it back up. So you could see something like that, maybe even from Westburg. You know, maybe Westburg will start the year slow, but pick things back up. For Gunnar, I mean, it just seems like he, you know, you mentioned the cat and mouse game between pitching and hitting, that they go back and forth, but it just seems like he already, especially the way he hit in the ALDS, already has so much figured out right now, which is insane to say from such a young player.
Yeah. What is he, 22, 21?
I think he's going to be 23 this upcoming season.
Yeah. It's crazy young, long career ahead of him, hopefully. And, this is just the start. I do have a question for you.
Yes, please ask.
What do you think Joey Ortiz does?
It's a great question. I mean, I think I've said all offseason, I think he makes the most sense as a trade candidate in the Orioles system because there just isn't. We just talked about Jordan Westburg.
Yeah.
We just talked about Gunnar Henderson.
There's Connor Norby in there as well. It's
maybe
a little bit behind. Norby is more of a second baseman. Ortiz can play all over.
Great defensive player.
Phenomenal defensive player. So you love that aspect.
Yeah.
But same as you, I don't necessarily see as clear cut of a fit unless Jorge Mateo is moved, and then you say Joey Ortiz is that backup, shortstop, utility infielder.
Yeah, I mean, you're talking about Urias and Mateo kind of taking two spots that you could be using on Joey Ortiz, on Connor Norby, heck, on Kobe Mayo, who's finished, who played for AAA.
Him. Yeah, can't forget about Kobe Mayo. He might mash his way onto this roster. He's good enough to show. Last spring training, he struggled. I think he tried to do a little too much in 2023 spring training.
Still a very young player.
Very young. I do think Kobe Mayo has a chance to mess up all of our projections for what this roster looks like on opening day and suddenly be a piece on this team as well. Especially Kobe has been practicing with Enrique Bradfield Jr. how to play outfield.
That's awesome.
Which changes.
Better
coming on that.
No better person to learn how to play the outfield.
Story coming on that one. So
awesome.
Hopefully, hopefully we get a little more details on what that looks like. But I mean, Kobe could be very intriguing if he plays third. Can play first, and then you throw right field in the mix too. Now you're looking at what do you do with this immense power guy who's could prove that he needs to be on the roster.
There's so many moving parts here, and I think that's why it's fascinating what Elias does and which pieces he ends up moving, if he ends up moving these guys. I think what I keep coming back to, and I'll close with this, is just with Ramon Urias and Jorge Mateo, I think a lot of people say you can move on from them. I think Elias, the way that he thinks, which is the way that you should be thinking as a GM, you want to squeeze every ounce of potential and every ounce of ability from these guys. You don't want to just give guys away. He was able to pick up Urias off waivers from the Cardinals. You don't want to put a player who has shown to be a regular big leaguer, just drop him on waivers just for a prospect. And same with Jorge Mateo. I think they want to get something back for these guys if they're going to be dealing them. I don't think that they just want to drop the talent and let it go. So I think I think Elias is saying, I'm going to keep playing these guys because they're solid big leaguers until we get a good enough offer. We're not just going to drop them on waivers.
It is a tricky balance, and I think it's easy for people on the outside to just say, let's see all the young guys immediately.
Right.
But Ramon and Jorge bring a lot to the roster too, even if they're not hitting Gunnar Henderson levels. 97% of the league is not doing that. But
they're big leaguers.
They have the experience that you don't necessarily know what a prospect is going to do when he gets there.
Exactly.
Yet you do know what Ramon Urias and Jorge Mateo are going to do.
Right. Yeah.
So,
bird in the hand.
Yep.
It's going to be fascinating to see. The BaltimoreBanner.com has complete coverage for you throughout the offseason. We are, it's crazy to say, but about 3 weeks away from spring training.
Say it ain't so.
It's in Sarasota, Florida. Aren't you ready for the sunshine, Andy? At AF Kostka is his Twitter handle. I am at Paul Mancano and also at All Banner Sports. Some great coverage going on the BaltimoreBanner.com. Plenty of Ravens coverage, of course, as well as we ready for the AFC Championship game. Thanks to everybody for tuning in. We are doing these once a week, Tuesdays at 1 p.m. And hopefully we have some more Orioles news to discuss the next time we hop on here. For Andy Kostka, I'm Paul Mancano. Thanks so much for tuning in. And if you see us at the Birdland Caravan, give us a